The United States is in the middle of this war between Israel and Hamas. The good news is that Israel and Hamas have agreed to a ceasefire. That's only partially good news, because what we faced before this and what was happening is there were missiles coming down on Gaza from Israel. And other countries were blaming the United States for not stepping up, blaming President Biden for not demanding that Israel's president, Benjamin Netanyahu, that he didn't agree to a ceasefire earlier, before more than 10,000 people lost their lives. Now, here's what's going on. There are strikes, and I'm talking about airstrikes. This is from this morning. It says U.S. strikes kill 8 pro-Iran fighters in Iraq and angering Baghdad. This isn't the first time we've seen this. This will not be the last time we see this either. Because according to multiple reports, there's an Iranian-backed group vows to expand the conflict if U.S. airstrikes continue. But here's what we know. These airstrikes will continue if these Iranian-backed groups continue to hit U.S. targets, hit U.S. personnel, and hit U.S. military bases overseas, mainly in Iraq and Syria. We have currently more than 2,500 people, U.S. troops, in Iraq and Syria. And Iran does not like that. So, what does this mean? Well, I want to read you a little bit of this. Okay, I want to read you a little bit of this article right here. It says U.S. strikes kill 8 pro-Iran fighters in Iraq. The reason I want to read you this is to give you a little bit of context here. What are we going to see? It says U.S. fighter jets struck 2 targets in Iraq earlier on Wednesday, killing 8 pro-Iran fighters in retaliation for repeated attacks on American troops, U.S. and Iraqi sources said. It goes on to say, the twin strikes, which followed similar bombardment of Iran-backed forces on Tuesday, drew condemnation from the Iraqi government, which said it had not been consulted about the military action on its soil. It says the U.S. military conducted discrete precision strikes against 2 facilities in Iraq, U.S. Central Command posted on X, or Twitter. The strikes were in direct response to the attacks against the U.S. and coalition forces by Iran and Iran-backed groups. That's the reason why. Because Iran attacked the U.S. first. Iran continues to attack coalition forces, and the United States is done with that. The reason why this is turning into a bigger issue is because of this statement right here. Iranian-backed groups vow to expand conflict if U.S. airstrikes continue. President Biden, the Pentagon, and many U.S. officials have stated that they will not back down if our troops, our homeland, or our bases are attacked. They will respond. There will be a retaliation. So, where does that leave us? Well, according to many experts, they believe that these attacks will not stop. These attacks from Iran on the United States will not stop until U.S. troops are out of Iraq and Syria. They don't want them in the Middle East. Iran does not want the United States in the Middle East. They say we need to go back home. Leave them alone. Now, the United States is not going to do that. President Biden is not going to pull out the remaining 2,500 troops from Iraq and Syria. They will stay there. And based off some of the comments that I've received and some of the emails I've received lately as well, is many of you have said that you have friends and family that are now being called in and asked to deploy. It's interesting what's happening right now, but that is something that we kind of expected moving forward. So, what does this mean? Well, we still have this issue between Ukraine and Russia, where the Russian president is saying that he's never backed down from negotiation. He's willing to negotiate with Ukraine. So right now, the United States is trying to continue to fund Ukraine. It's a little slow. Congress isn't 100% agreeing to it, but they are attempting to. So that's one issue. The other issue is we are now being pulled into the middle of Israel and Hamas simply because we were not supporting, or we were not coming out and saying that Benjamin Netanyahu needs to ensure that Israel agrees to a ceasefire. And like I said, much of the world has been looking at the United States and President Biden and saying that, what are we doing? Why are we not doing more? And now, Iran is attacking U.S. troops because we didn't first agree or first try to get Israel to agree to this ceasefire? It just sounds, and based off many statements as well, is it seems like Iran's just looking for another excuse to attack U.S. troops. So, I want to show you one other thing. Okay? Look at this. This is from yesterday. It says Wagner to provide air defenses to Iran or Hezbollah. This is the White House. I want to read you a statement from the spokesperson John Kirby. Okay? So let's just go ahead and read this right here. Okay? It says John Kirby, a spokesman for the White House National Security Council, said Washington was prepared to use counterterrorism sanctions against Russian individuals or entities that might make the destabilizing transfers. Wagner, which is funded by the Kremlin, has been brought back into line after a failed mutiny in June presented the biggest threat to President Vladimir Putin's two-decade rule. Washington's assessment came as evidence emerged that Wagner was still using its headquarters in St. Petersburg months after the site was raided by Russian security forces following former leader aborted march on Moscow. Reports earlier this month suggest the group planned to provide Hezbollah, the Lebanon-based group backed by Tehran, with the Pantsir S-1 air defense system, known by NATO as the SA-22. The system uses anti-aircraft missiles and air defense guns to intercept aircraft. Okay. Mr. Kirby told a briefing that the expanding partnership between Moscow and Tehran threatened the international community. He said Washington was aware that Iran has been providing Russia with significant numbers of drones, guided aerial bombs, and artillery ammunition in its war in Ukraine. In return for that support, Russia has been offering Tehran unprecedented defense cooperation, including on missiles, electronics, and air defense. This is where things are starting to get out of hand. This is where other countries are stepping in. And this is what many people said was their big worry, is if this war were to widen. Well, based off all the evidence that we have now, the war is widening. It's still fairly small. But once these retaliations start to increase or really escalate, the war is going to get bigger and bigger every single day. So, just wanted to fill you in on what's going on at this time. That is what we know. But again, thank you guys for watching. Consider subscribing, and I'll see you guys on the next one.